Let's see, where are my little remarks here? Huh.
Yeah, we got. Get beside us. Don't get beside us.
Only men stand behind you.
Thank you. Okay.
Speak for yourself.
Amy?
Every Thursday we meet under the auspices of the Democratic Policy Committee led by Chairman Schumer. We're going to leave here, go have our regular luncheon, but we felt it was extremely important to make sure the American people understand that we have obstruction that is on steroids. Never in the history of the country has there been anything like this. There will be no hearings, there will be no vote. They will not even meet with the nominee, no matter who it is. To show how this is so very, very bad, we have my senator from Nevada, my senator that I work with, Senator Heller. One of the names being talked about, and
They can't hear you.
okay, well, how about start all over? Okay, we'll start all over. Okay, start all over. Here we go. I think they're just for show.
Not the mic.
I think they're just for show. Okay, they are just for show.
Okay.
It's the Supreme Court rules.
Yeah, the Supreme Court doesn't like this loud free speech out here.
Okay, so
It was 4-4, no amplification.
we have never had in the history of the country such obstruction. President's nomination, he has no choice. He shall nominate. So he's going to nominate someone. But we've already been told there will be no hearings, there will be no vote, and then to make it even unbelievable, they won't even meet with this nominee. So we are going to continue having the Republicans be forced to understand how they cannot do their jobs. We want them to do their jobs. That's all we ask. Do your jobs. You took an oath saying you will uphold the Constitution. That's all we're asking. And if they're going to live up to the oath that they took, becoming a United States Senator, well, they're going to have to reassess where their position is. So we're going to hear today from the Dean of the United States Senate, our leader on the Judicial Committee, Senator Leahy. We're going to hear from Senator Feinstein, who's been so remarkable in all the many things she does, including being chair of the Intelligence Committee. Senator Klobuchar, head of our steering committee, and we thought we should get some young blood here. That's why Martin Heinrich from New Mexico.
Thank you, Leader. You know, I've served in the Senate longer than anybody who's here. I have never once, whether the Democrats have been in control or the Republicans, whether there's a Democratic president or a Republican president, seen this total abrogation of their duties. We have always held hearings on Supreme Court nominees. We've always reported them to the full Senate for consideration. It's an important, transparent moment for the American public to see what we're doing. And what the Republicans have said in unprecedented fashion, that even though under the Constitution they took a solemn oath before God to uphold the Constitution, they said, in this case, we won't uphold the Constitution or our oath. They've held backroom meetings, categorically reject a nominee before they've even been named. Unprecedented, a handful of senators say, we will not do our job. We will not do what we're paid for. We will not do what we're elected for. We will not do what we're taking a solemn oath to do. Instead, they should be working across the aisle to fill this vacancy as has always been done. I urge the chairman, I urge the Republican leader, change their decision, do what we have always done, hold a hearing. Rank partisanship should not trump how we've always treated Supreme Court nominees. Republicans should allow the Senate to do its job, the job we're paid to do, but more importantly, the job that we took a solemn oath to do.
Thank you.
And next, Senator Feinstein.
I haven't been on the Judiciary Committee as long as our ranking member has, but I've been there for 23 years, and I sat through 6 confirmations. I agree with those who say we find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. The real question is why? Why are Senate Republicans so adamant about not fulfilling their constitutional responsibility? Why are they so adamant about blocking this president from making a Supreme Court appointment? Is it concern over the issues set to come before the court, or a desire to appoint a justice who may be inclined to put conservative ideology ahead of his or her obligations? Whatever the reason, the obstruction they're contemplating is unprecedented. In 2008, a Democratic Senate confirmed 10 district court judges nominated by George W. Bush. They did this not only in Bush's final year in office, but in September of that year. Yet here we are in February, and Republicans want to shut down the process. There's plenty of precedent for Supreme Court confirmations in this situation. 14 of the 112 justices in our history were confirmed in the final year of a presidential term. And one of those was Justice Anthony Kennedy, a Californian who was confirmed in President Ronald Reagan's final year in office. It was a democratically controlled Senate that moved Kennedy's nomination to the floor. Republicans should look at some of these precedents before they decide not to do their job. Finally, let me quote Justice Scalia himself about the need for a full complement of justices. In 2004, Scalia responded to a request that he recuse himself from a case. He responded that, contrary to the appeals court, he wouldn't be replaced if he were to do so. Quote, "The court proceeds with 8 justices, raising the possibility that by reason of a tie vote, it will find itself unable to resolve the significant legal issue presented by the case." End quote. He then referenced the court's own recusal policy. Quote, "Even one unnecessary recusal impairs the functioning of this court." End quote. But today, Republicans are saying we should leave a seat empty for well over a year. The Supreme Court needs 9 justices to function properly. It is vital to our judicial system. So Republicans, we say this: just do your job. Just do what you're sent here to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. And like Senator Leahy, Senator Feinstein, I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee, and I come at this really from my life before that, when I was a prosecutor, and we would depend on the Supreme Court to make incredibly important decisions about due process, about criminal justice issues. I come in my past life as a lawyer representing businesses and individuals, where we would depend on the Supreme Court. Not to take the easy cases, but to take the hard cases when there were differences between lower courts all over this land. Yet today we stand before you knowing that we have an empty seat on that court, a seat that was vacated because of an unexpected death. And it is a surprise to everyone what happened, but now, once we get through that, the issue is we have to do our jobs. Yesterday, we had 4 constitutional experts from around the country, from Chicago, from North Carolina, and they all said the same thing. They said shall means shall. When the Constitution says that the president shall nominate and that the Senate shall advise and consent. That is what it's meant. And it has meant that through history. You have to go back to the Civil War, they told us, to find a time when a seat had been left vacant for over a year on the Supreme Court. That is a time before we had what? Cars, planes, washing machines. You look in those years since then. You look at those years since then. We have been through World War I, World War II, Vietnam War. We have been through incredible civil rights differences in this country and conflicts, yet we have always filled the seats on the Supreme Court. So yes, we talked about the past, but today I think about the future. I think about those kids that are right now in their social studies class, learning about the 3 pillars of government, learning that there is a difference between the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch, and that the judicial branch is supposed to be insulated from the politics of the day. And that our job in the Congress is to look at the president's nominee, to decide if they're qualified, and if they're qualified, if they meet their standards, then that person goes on the Supreme Court. That's why we are demanding hearings and asking for an up and down vote, just as the Constitution asks us to do. Thank you.
Good job.
Well done.
Good morning, everybody. I was coming over with Senator Klobuchar, and we were joking about the old Sesame Street skit. One of these is not like the other one. That would be me. I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not on judiciary. But I remember that the very first thing I did as a United States Senator was to take that oath to the Constitution, to uphold it and to defend it. And the words in the Constitution are pretty simple. They're simple enough that even an engineer can read them and understand them. It says in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, that the President, quote, shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all officers of the United States. That's pretty unambiguous. It doesn't say may, it doesn't say shall, except on election years. It says shall nominate. We need to do our jobs. The Constitution lays out very clearly here what our constitutional duty is. And to turn our backs on this the way that Leader McConnell has suggested, if not unconstitutional, is certainly disrespectful of the Constitution. And I think it is unconscionable to think that we would do that. In particular, if we don't do our jobs, it makes it impossible for the Supreme Court to do their job. It will leave them hamstrung with 4-4 decisions. So for the Supreme Court to be able to do what they need to do their jobs, we have to do our job first. So I'm here to join my colleagues to call on Leader McConnell to say, let's all step up, Republicans and Democrats, and do our job.
Yeah, well done.
It's a little chilly, but we'll take some questions. Yes. Right here. Please go ahead. Go ahead. Hang on. Go ahead.
What pressure are you specifically prepared to bring against your Republican colleagues to get what you want?
The pressure we're going to bring is to tell them to do their jobs. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do that every day. The fact is, it's been laid out here very clearly that they're not doing their job, their constitutional obligation, and we're going to continue that every day.
And if they're taking an oath before God to do that job, they should do it.
Thank you. I heard Senator Feinstein mention the Republicans are doing what they're doing because they want to make the seat available for an ideological aligned successor to Justice Scalia. Aren't you all out here also because you want the opposite on the court? Isn't that why you're fighting?
No.
Dianne Feinstein did not say that. You're reading something totally she didn't say that. Dianne Feinstein, of all people, has been someone who has rarely been partisan. This is not a partisan issue in any way, shape, or form.
Senator Reid, you've spoken to the White House several times about this vacancy. Yesterday you said you supported Ryan Sandoval if he were to be nominated. From what you understand, how seriously is the White House considering Ryan Sandoval?
You have to talk to them. I have no idea.
Are you floating this as a trial balloon?
Talk to the White House. I can't. I have no ability to nominate anyone.
Senator, earlier the issue of
Yeah.
district court judges was brought up, and in 2007, I believe it
We would love to have them do district court judges. We've never tried to stop them. And we've not even complained because they're putting through mostly Republican judges. We haven't complained about that. Fact is, yeah, Mr. Chairman?
No, I just would, numbers,
Boy, that's a wobbly
numbers,
old deal.
numbers say the fact. In the last 2 years of President Bush's term, Democrats took control of the Senate. We put through, right up until through September, 68 of President Bush's nominees. They've allowed, I think, 16 of President Obama's. That shows where the partisanship is. The 67 or 68, and they've allowed 16. That shows where the partisanship is. Set it aside. Even a Republican nominee, a Republican Supreme Court justice, nominated by Ronald Reagan, Sandra Day O'Connor, said we should fulfill the Constitution and do what we're sworn to do.
One last question. A childish tantrum when we're asking him to do his job? He's chairman of a committee. He should hold hearings, report people out. Bork, for example. Bork was turned down in the judiciary, overwhelmingly turned down. We were in control of the Senate. We brought him to the floor anyway. So this is talk about. Wow. I think that Senator Grassley better read some of the editorials coming out of Iowa. For example, one of the largest and oldest newspaper in Iowa said today that they congratulated Senator Grassley on his career because he cast a lot of votes. I don't remember how many it was, more than anybody in the history of the state of Iowa. Today they took it all back. In writing, they took it all back. They said, we're sorry we said anything nice about Charles Grassley based on what he's doing in the Senate. So he better start reading his own editorials.